Welcome to the revolution.
Putin was at a national event, like a parade, kind of like our Memorial Day, where it was surrounding the soldiers who had lost their lives in war. And I believe this was in like some huge stadium. And so you'll hear some of his conversations surrounding that. This was a little bit earlier, but this is the most recent conversation from Putin that I can find, was on May 9th of 2022. And I've looked through every transcript of every conversation that he has available over the last month and a half. So this is the most recent conversation that he had, was during this like Memorial Day type ceremony on May 9th. He mentions NATO. He mentions the United States. He mentions the United States several times. He mentions how they're, boasting and claiming their own exceptionalism, and how basically how the West seems to want to cancel their old traditional values and cultures. So we'll talk about that right now. So he says, on May 9th of 2022, Putin goes on to say, "We take pride in the unconquered, courageous generations of the victors. We are proud of being their successors, and it is our duty to preserve the memory of those who defeated Nazism and entrusted us being vigilant and doing everything to thwart the horror of another global war." Now, side note, that is an interesting thing that Putin has talked about this entire time, is the comparison between Germany during World War II and the Nazism and Nazifying of the Donbass region, and specifically the Azov regime. Now, you can go online right now. If you're listening to this, your ass has an internet connection. And you can Google, or don't Google, go to Brave browser and use search.brave and look up the Azov battalion, the Azov regime. And you can see pictures upon pictures upon pictures of them flaunting a Nazi flag. Flaunting a Nazi flag. Okay, now this is the same people that Facebook decided to change their policies against about several months ago, 2 to 3 months ago. Facebook originally did not allow positive speech, did not allow support of the Azov regime, because they're Nazis in some way, shape, or form. Okay, or at least they support Nazi principles and have Nazi symbolism all over them and their flags. So Facebook did not allow support of the Azov regime. 2 to 3 months ago, they changed their policies quietly in the dead of the night to allow support for the Azov regime, allow support for a literal Nazi party. Okay, so this is a verifiable claim from Putin, saying and making these comparisons to the Nazi Germany of World War II, when there is the Azov regime touting Nazi flags. All over you can find those pictures, okay? So, just wanted to throw that out there. He's not just frivolously throwing out claims of they're Nazis, like Antifa likes to do about everybody that they disagree with. There's legitimate Nazis in Ukraine, okay? So, just wanted to point that out. It's not just, he's just not throwing things out there. There's legitimate claims here, okay? So, he goes on to say, "Therefore, despite all controversies in international relations, Russia has always advocated the establishment of an equal and indivisible security system, which is critically needed for the entire international community. Last December, we proposed signing a treaty on security guarantees. Russia urged the West to hold an honest dialogue and search for meaningful and compromising solutions, and to take account of each other's interests. All in vain. NATO countries did not want to heed to us, which means they had totally different plans, and we saw it." Putin went on to say, "Another punitive operation in Donbass, an invasion of our historic lands, including Crimea, was openly in the making." Okay, now, I'll repeat that. He says that another punitive operation in Donbass, an invasion of our historic land, speaking of the former Soviet Union, Donbass and that portion of Ukraine was a part of the Soviet Union prior. Okay, So another punitive operation in Donbass, an invasion of our historic lands, including Crimea, was openly in the making. Kiev declared that it could attain nuclear weapons. The NATO bloc launched an active military buildup on the territories adjacent to us. Thus, an absolutely unacceptable threat to us was steadily being created right on our borders, Putin said. There was every indication that a clash with neo-Nazis and Banderites backed by the United States and their minions was unavoidable. That's a big claim, okay? United States-backed neo-Nazis, which is literally what it is. If the United States is sending weapons and sending money, like, the $66 billion that we've sent to Ukraine so far, $66 billion, which, as I talked about before, would equal $640,000 almost to each one of the 106,000 elementary schools to help with security measures, just to give you the idea of what 66 billion actually looks like. Okay? That's what we've been sending to these organizations, to Ukraine, right? Just a blank check. Let me repeat. We saw the military infrastructure, Putin goes on to say, being built up. Hundreds of foreign advisors starting work, and regular supplies of cutting-edge weaponry being delivered from NATO countries. The threat grew every day. Russia launched a preemptive strike at the aggression. It was a forced, timely, and the only correct decision. A decision by a sovereign, strong, and independent country. The United States began claiming their exceptionalism, particularly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, thus denigrating not just the entire world, but also their satellites, who have to pretend not to see anything and to obediently put up with it. But we are a different country. Russia has a different character. We will never give up our love for our motherland, Putin says, our faith and traditional values, our ancestors' customs, and respect for all people and cultures. Meanwhile, the West seems to be set to cancel these millennia-old values. Such moral degradation underlies the cynical falsifications of World War II history, escalating Russophobia, praising traitors, mocking their victims' memories, and crossing out the courage of those who won the victory through suffering. We are aware that U.S. veterans who wanted to come to the parade in Moscow were actually forbidden to do so. But I want them to know we are proud of your deeds and your contribution to our common victory, speaking about World War II. We honor all soldiers of the Allied armies, the Americans, the English, the French, resistance fighters, brave soldiers, and partisans in China. All of those who defeated Nazism and militarism. Okay. There you have it.